to Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan. Now the court has ordered the university to reconsider the appointment and said that the candidate does not have the required experience to be a teaching faculty at the university. The court has said, and I'm quoting, that it fails to understand how the scrutiny committee has accepted this as a teaching experience. Now the court was referring to the qualifications of Priya Varghese. So though not a quashing order per se, but the direct line of argument that the court has taken is that she does not have the qualification and the court fails to understand. Now this order by the court has clearly put the state government in the dock, which is already facing a direct confrontation with the governor's office over appointments in the state-run university. With this development, the state government's ordinance to cull the powers of the governor in terms of university appointments faces new questions. Now the state government, does it have the political morality to take such a call, especially after this order? Our top focus happening on merit and merely by the recommendation of one party or the other. We also had heard earlier a local level officer, a district level officer over a telephone call asking some left leaders about, can they give some names and certain appointments are going to be made at the local level. So once again, the key question that emerges is that are the appointments in the university, in the education institutes happening, and they're happening at the behest of the political masters, not because of merit. Neetu Regukumar with us on the broadcast. Neetu, in the larger context of the kind of confrontation that we have seen between the governor's office and the elected government of the day, this case was particularly very important. It went directly to the office of the Chief Minister. Now, you draw an important distinction that there are no quashing orders per se over this appointment. What has the High Court said, and what are the scathing comments that it has made in terms of this particular appointment by the university?
See, the High Court in its order today has made it very clear that Dr. Priya Varghese does not have the required teaching experience to be appointed for this post in the Kannur University. Point by point, the court has clearly mentioned that. The court went on to say that working as a director of social student services and also the coordinator for NSS, these are all very good activities, but per se you cannot say that without any teaching experience or without any teaching assignment during that period, you cannot say that this should be counted as your teaching experience, and this is in violation of the UGC guidelines. So the court making it very clear there and has asked the Kannur University to review this, to reconsider this rank list, to look into her credentials and then decide. So politically, if you look at it, this has put the LDF, the Left Democratic Front, in the defensive because they have been going on having this face-off between the governor and the government, mainly over university issues as well. In this particular incident, what Pinarayi Vijayan, the Kerala Chief Minister, had earlier said is that when asked about Dr. Priya Varghese's appointment, what he categorically said was that if somebody feels that they are qualified for a post and if they apply, just because their spouse is working in the Chief Minister's office, does it mean that they don't have the right to apply? So this is what the Chief Minister had said then.
Neetu, politically speaking, the way the entire confrontation has heated up between the governor's office and the Chief Minister's office, especially when it comes to the appointment of vice chancellors at about 8 universities. It's a matter of administration, at the same time, pending in some litigation as well. There's an ordinance also that the government has brought in, and even there is the matter is stuck up there because the governor doesn't want to go ahead with the ordinance. But talking from the entire political posturing point of view, you said that the government has indeed turned very defensive after the High Court order. How do you see this really playing out? Do you see the government persisting on the ordinance going forward, or perhaps there can be some backtracking that can happen?
No, we don't think that just because of this High Court order, government backtracking from this ordinance or this bill is not likely at all at this moment, Anusha, because they are going ahead with this. A special assembly session has been called, and most likely this bill that will be introduced, which essentially takes the power of the governor as chancellor, removing governor as the chancellor of the universities and appointing experts in the field as chancellor of the university. So that is one bill which the government is looking at passing in this special assembly session. But what will happen after the bill has been passed, because the University Rules Amendment Bill is also pending before the governor after it has been passed by the State Legislative Assembly in the last assembly session. So what really will happen after this, that is something which we'll have to wait and watch. But definitely politically the LDF and the CPM will not back off at this moment.
They won't back off at this moment just because of this one particular order. Neetu Regukumar getting us all the details on that very important story. Thank you, Neetu, for joining us on the broadcast. Well, throwing open this question to our guest as well, it has been an open secret that appointments at various universities across the country are often done at the behest of the political dispensation of the day. But for the High Court to give an order and make some scathing observations and remarks about the manner in which this appointment, particularly at the Kannur University, was done is something that the government would have to answer. Joining us on the broadcast is Rahul Ishwar, who's an author and activist, Raju P. Nair, who's a spokesperson of the Congress Party, Suneet Chopra, he's a left leader and also a political analyst, Tulsi K. Raj, who's an advocate, is also joining us on the broadcast. Mr. Chopra, how do you see this order by the High Court? More importantly, it puts a direct question mark over the credibility of the appointments and somewhere gives some weightage to what the governor's office has been saying. All of that cannot be mere humbug.
No, but it's very clear. The law, every university is governed by an act. The act that exists at the moment in Kerala, and it was an act that was actually brought into being by the last government, that was the Congress government.
Okay.
And this act determines the actions of a university. The UGC has guidelines. You may follow the guidelines. What I can see is that the court has taken a stand on that, the High Court, and I think it's a good thing. The courts should be powerful. The courts should be meaningful.
No, sir, with due respect,
But
with due respect,
we
the
have
UGC
every
guidelines,
right to appeal.
UGC,
we have every right to appeal.
no, sir, the
UGC
argument
can only give guidelines.
No, you're
It's
right.
not
The
a part
UGC
of the
can.
act.
You're right that the UGC can only give guidelines, and even right now, the High Court has asked the university to reconsider. But when the High Court goes on record and
Yes.
says that the person that you've appointed does not have the qualifications per se, under the guidelines, under the rule book, to be appointed as a teaching faculty, it does not reflect good on the appointment process per se.
It's guidelines that are under the Act. The Act doesn't say so. I know that. I've checked on it. The Act does not say so. And according to the Act, the university has acted okay. But the guidelines are being used by the court, and I think the judiciary has every right to decide what it wants to, and people have every right to appeal against it.
So,
And I believe there's a very good reason to appeal against it.
Mr. Nair, I'm coming to you. Do you see this argument from Mr. Chopra as a valid one, that these are mere guidelines? We have not violated the Act and we have a right to appeal. This is not the final word on the matter. Mr. Nair.
No, not at all. Today, the High Court has made it very clear that the scrutiny process itself was flawed, and the particular candidate, Priya Varghese, did not have the basic qualification to even apply for this job.
Yeah.
So they have very clearly they put forward the
The
reasons.
High
but,
Court said what it's...
Sorry, sir. Let me complete. I think at your
Please go
turn
ahead.
you can
Please
talk
go ahead,
about
Mr.
it.
Nair. Please go ahead.
Counter me also, my argument
Yeah.
also. So the
court.
court has made it very clear, and for Congress, we have been arguing from the beginning itself of this appointment that it is a political appointment, and out of the contestants in the for this post, from 6, she had the lowest mark in the academic score. She had only 151. And the person who had filed the case against her, he had 651 marks.
Yeah.
And that was subverted. And in the interview, she was given 2 marks higher to accommodate her as the assistant professor. And this was completely flawed procedure. And that is what we had raised from the beginning itself. Today, the court has vindicated whatever the opposition, Congress had to say. We had brought this to the assembly also, and we had countered this argument. This is a clear case of abuse of power, and the left government, the CPM, trying to capture the institutions. See, every fascist party, what they does is to try to capture this institution. That is what the RSS does in the center. The same thing is been done by the Pinarayi Vijayan government in the state. This is not just one incident. You know, for the last almost a month, we have been discussing about this political appointments in the university.
So, Mr. Nair,
vice chancellors are being
on this entire issue, you must agree with the governor's office that all the vice chancellors, about 8 universities where there's entire confrontation going on, the vice chancellor does have a substantial argument. So, you agree with Arif Mohammed Khan?
Definitely, Congress had supported the chancellor for reviewing all these 11 appointments in the wake of the Kerala Technical University judgment, Supreme Court judgment. Now, after that, 2 days back, the Quashes University, also the vice chancellor he was declared, his appointment was declared void by the Kerala High Court. Because this is
before I go to Rahul Ishwar and Tulsi Kiraj, Mr. Chopra, one question to you. It's very simple. There was a person who obtained much higher marks in the examination. The High Court is directly going to the substance of the matter. For 1 second, keeping the technicalities aside of the act per se, the guidelines per se, when the High Court says that a person who you have appointed as an associate professor does not have the required teaching experience according to the rule book, how have you really appointed them? This is as good as High Court is saying that, you know, your decision is not good. But of course, the UGC, no,
it's
of
guidelines.
Course,
sorry, it's not a rule book. It's guidelines, and the guidelines in the court also are guidelines that go back to the Congress period of governance.
No, sir, just because it goes back to the Congress period of governance, it does not make it morally tenable. No, I'm not talking about the Congress party. I'm not talking about the Congress party.
Wants a new position, it is welcome to do that. But the reality is that the guidelines are guidelines, and the University Act is the University Act, and it's the University Act that counts.
So, sir, help me understand this and help me understand this technicality.
Whether we like it or not.
No. You're talking about rule book versus the guidelines.
Help
me understand that when a particular person does not have the required teaching experience to have been associate professor, there's somebody who has obtained more marks than that person, and the person also allegedly has a direct link with the Chief Minister's office. Do all these facts not raise questions about the propriety of appointments at the state-run universities?
Let the facts come up. This can be appealed against. This can be appealed against.
No,
you don't have to use a governor.
Sir, till the time it is appealed or it is stayed, the High Court order is good in law, and that's the position where I'm coming to you from. It has not been appealed, it has not been stayed.
The High Court order is good in law, but your appeal is always possible, and we know that the law under which this order is to be discussed is already the law that the Congress has passed.
Sir, I think you're hinging too much just because you can appeal. I want to bring in Rahul Ishwar as well. Rahul, how do you see the arguments on both the sides? I mean, at the end of the day, Rahul, and perhaps you can elaborate more on this, the casualty is the education system, because here the appointments should happen based on merit, wonderful teachers, teaching staff. Kerala has a wonderful tradition when it comes to the education institutes, and the appointments are political. The governor has been screaming about it. The High Court order only affirms that.
Absolutely, Anushaji, and it's a victory for the education system of Kerala and a crusader.
Mr. Chopra, I'll come to you. Mr. Chopra, I'll come to you. Mr. Chopra, I'll come to you. Rahul, please go ahead. Rahul, please go ahead.
Mr. Arif Muhammad Khan, who have been crusading against such kind of political favoritism. And this is beyond politics. He has been rightly flagging many appointments by the CPM-led left government as politically favoritism. And we all know, why should we close our eyes? The elephant in the room is that in the CM's office, a very prominent member of the CM's team, a very senior leader, his wife is Priya. And Priya is a respectable person, but she doesn't have enough qualification to be the associate professor. Let us be very honest about it. Why should we shy away from it? But in Kerala, many people don't want to be in the wrong books of the Kerala government, and they will never raise the voice. But Kerala High Court, I think Kerala High Court really upheld that integrity of the position and rightly point out that many things that have been made up by the Kerala government is not good. And many of the so-called qualifications in the bench headed by Justice Devan Ramendran rightly said these cannot be counted as teaching experience. They were in fact making some kind of afterward ad hoc synthesis by trying to collate her experience in NSS and the other things as teaching experience. She may be a very good lady, intellectual lady, but at the same point of time, what they did is legal impropriety. I believe CPM-led government should express a regret to the people of Kerala that they have done something wrong. And
Mr. Chopra, I'll come back to you and take a response. I'll come back to you. Tulsi K. Raj, there is a distinction that Mr. Chopra repeatedly draws, that there's an act in place, there are guidelines, there is no rule book. Can you elaborate on the technicalities that surround this entire matter? Also, it would be nice to know that why the High Court has not gone ahead and quashed this appointment, but in fact told the university to perhaps reconsider it.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for that. So, of course, there are varied kinds of interpretations that are going on regarding the appointment that's been now done, which is an academic appointment. And the challenge to the appointment will have to be looked at on its own merits. The way the court has interpreted it is that, and of course, the High Court has some amount of discretion when it comes to looking at something that is alleged to be illegal and something that affects the education sector in a very direct and very notable way. And there are a lot of factors which the court will consider and have considered in the instant case to check whether an appointment looks like, there have been illegalities, there has been arbitrariness, there has been favoritism or not. Now, the discretion as to what should be the remedial measure, to answer your second question first, whether the remedial measure should be to go ahead and quash the appointment or to allow the academic institution, that is the university, to reconsider the matter is essentially a matter of discretion of the High Court or of the judicial institution. Therefore, the court can choose as to which path it wants to take.
No, but Tulsi, can you help us understand what is this distinction that Mr. Chopra keeps talking about of guidelines versus the rule book? I mean, even if there are guidelines in propriety of appointments, especially in educational institutes, there is a convention almost to make sure that the appointments are done in proper manner, and whatever guidelines exist, they are followed by the dispensation of the day.
That's true. I mean, of course, the distinction is technical, what is sought to be drawn.
Mr. Chopra, I'll come to you. After this, I'll come to you. Sir, I'll come to you after this.
The difficulty is that, for example, the court is not looking purely at the breach of guideline in the instant case. The court is, of course, when it looks at whether an appointment has been made illegally or not, it is going to look at broad principles of transparency. It's going to look at broad principles of, lack of nepotism and lack of arbitrariness. And the High Court is, of course, empowered to do all of things because we're talking about public employment, right? We're not talking about a private employment where a private employer has hired someone, and that is not the issue here. We're talking about a university appointment. Of course, all these questions as to whether something is illegal or not will be checked by the judicial institution.
Not merely on the technicality of whether it's a rule or a guideline. Mr. Chopra, let's talk about public propriety. Let's talk about the morality under which the appointments are made. This is a matter that concerns the public education system in our country, in the state of Kerala more importantly. Arbitrariness, nepotism, were there undue favors that were granted? The High Court... Sir, please let me complete my question.
To throw out so many vice chancellors of universities.
So that's a matter which is still open for debate, still open for litigation. There is a matter which the High Court has decided today, and I think the government of the day should answer about it. I mean, you can draw this artificial distinction between guidelines versus rules, but there's a good point that Tulsi is making, that this is about propriety. This is about public employment.
It is not necessary for this kind of debate. The matter is open to litigation.
You are
until
saying
the
that
matter is
appointment
settled.
at a public university is being made.
It
and
is not
somebody,
open to debate
no,
the way
why,
you're doing
why is it not open to debate? I argue it is open to debate. Why is it not open for debate? Is there a gag order to talk about this issue, sir?
Because the law concerned, is a law under
I think
which
he's
we can
completely
appeal.
shattered by the judgment.
Suniji, a person of your stature, we all respect. You are
Not
a
at
loss
all.
of words. That means the position is very
A
bad.
judgment
A
is a
person of your
judgment. I'm
senior
very
stature,
glad
a person
that
of your
the judges.
articulation skills.
I'm
even
very
you cannot
glad
defend.
that the judges in Kerala are better than the judges in Delhi and other places where all kinds of things are being done.
That's a personal
You
comment
even
that
have
Mr.
ministers
Chopra
in this
is
country
making.
who
This is not a
drove
reflection of the views of
over-
this channel.
over
Mr.
farmers and
Nair,
killed
Mr.
them.
Nair, I'm coming to you, and I say this with all respect to Mr. Chopra, but that the arguments that are being made today are not comprehensible. First, you make a technical distinction between a rule versus a guideline. It's not a rule book, it's a guideline. But these are larger questions of propriety that needs to be
And
considered.
it should go by the rule.
Mr. Chopra, you've not
It is
answered
the
me on the
duty.
propriety of it. You've not answered that the High Court has looked at broad parameters when it comes to appointments in public
The
universities.
propriety of it in a condition like India cannot be discussed in abstract. It
Okay.
has to be in a concrete situation.
So tell me,
And
I
in the
am putting
concrete
out,
situation,
I am
what
putting
the
out a
governor of
concrete.
Kerala has
No.
done is wrong.
See, I don't think
He
it
is
is
only a
good
governor.
in a debate
I am-
to
He's
interfere
nothing
All right,
like
like
this
Mr.
not
Nair,
even an
openly.
all right,
elected
Mr.
official.
Nair, you want to come in?
I think we also have the right to put forward our opinions.
Mr. Nair, one of the things that was said for you some time ago was that all these rules and guidelines were actually framed by the Congress government. And the state government has the leeway under
Exactly.
the same very guidelines to make these kind of appointments. Do you want to respond to that?
See,
bit?
yeah, see, first of all, what he has to understand is the court has not commented against the guidelines. It has not said anything about the guidelines, but in the particular case, the court has seen that the guidelines were flouted because her educational, her period of education, what do you say, teacher this thing also,
Yeah.
that itself was not complete as per the guidelines. That is what the court has observed. I think Mr. Ghosh is on another debate of whether the guidelines is true or not. See, it does not fit your agenda, the CPM's agenda, to place the private secretary's wife as the associate professor. That is your problem. But the guidelines,
The
court has
agenda
not
is
said
that of
anything
the
about it.
Congress. You
Sir,
have
please,
to
let me
Rahul,
complete.
why
I think
those
it-
In the
guidelines
state
were
of
there.
Kerala, and I
Sir, with all
say this,
respect,
I dare
with
say
all
this in other
respect, this
states
is
as
not
well,
good to
but more
continuously
particularly in the
interfere
state
in
of
the
Kerala,
law
because
of
that's
the
the topic which
Congress.
is being discussed. Rahul Ishwar.
Sorry, we are
Is
not
it-
getting enough
is
time
it-
to respond because he is interfering. Please.
All right, Mr. Nair, make your point, then I have to take a question with Rahul Ishwar as well. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So this is what the CPM agenda is. They are doing the same thing what they did in the Bengal to the Presidency College and also the Calicut.
doing the same thing as the
Calcutta
Congress.
Mr.
University.
Chopra, please let him
They
make
are
his
doing-
point. Mr.
because
Chopra,
that is
please
the-
let him
they are
make his
doing the
point.
same thing to
One
the
at a time,
judges.
please. One at a
Higher
time, please.
education-
Mr.
Sir,
Nair.
please.
Mr.
Sir,
Nair,
please.
Mr.
They are
Nair.
doing- The CPM is doing the same thing to the Kerala higher education. 32,000 students have gone out of Kerala. Kerala is suffering a major issue like a brain drain, and we as a society are trying to stop our students going out. Now the problem is the entire higher education system have been completely demolished by CPM. They are trying to put their people as VCs, and all these things are interrelated. Because who shortlisted these candidates for this Kannur University? It is the VC who shortlisted these candidates. So the
But Mr.
CPM
Nair,
is trying to
the
put
government,
their,
it
as
doesn't
the
look
VCs
like
in the
we'll go back on
universities.
that ordinance. They have already got an ordinance in place.
Yeah, see the entire
So
ordinance.
it seems very
the
unlikely
new
they'll go back on
bill,
it.
everything is to take forward their agenda of painting these institutions red. Actually, that is why they are having a knee-jerk reactions. They are going against the chancellor. They are issuing an ordinance, and after that they are going. Now they are not saying about the ordinance. Instead, they are trying to pass a bill in the coming session. So
Rahul,
the
often,
CPM is completely.
all right, I want to bring in
trying
Rahul
to
Ishwar as well into
justify.
the discussion. Rahul, there is often this entire discussion how certain organizations or political parties, and BJP has been often accused of this, that you're trying to saffronize education. But let's talk about this particular way in which education is affected in a state like Kerala. The High Court order today doesn't directly talk about it, but it does give us substantial grounds to argue that politics is taking precedence over merit in appointments at the universities, and perhaps it's an open secret that Mr. Nair was also talking about.
Absolutely. That's a very worrisome trend. As a person working in the field of education, everyone realizes this. Please remember, all the non-left parties, both BJP and Congress and civil society, academicians have been raising this. See, this is about the future of our children. Every party may have their own proclivities, their own ecosystem they have to cater to. These are all Indian realities. But at the same point of time, overt and such kind of very grand actions which will really damage the institution, like my good friend Sri Raju P. Nair said, is absolutely distasteful and absolutely disgraceful. BJP has raised it, Governor has raised it, Congress has raised it, academicians have raised it. That's the reason why the whole effort to paint it red is absolutely unfortunate, uncalled for, and hope even right now, as a normal Malayali, I would request Kerala government to leave the stubbornness, leave the upmanship and accept the nice proposals of the governor and also follow the directive of the Kerala government. They have been on a war path and war footing, which is unfortunate. Their left should not be so stubborn in their stance, and we all respect Suniji, who's a very senior to all of us. We all have great respect for him. But an articulate person like him cannot defend the position because they all know it is wrong. So let us be honest in calling a spade, and I thank national media like CNN News 18 for raising this very pertinent issue, because this affects our coming generations.
Spade is a racist term against the black people.
Sir, please, sir.
All right,
please understand the spirit of
Tulsi, I'm coming. No, sir, nobody, no, sir. In the spirit of a healthy discussion, I don't think that was the intention of Rahul Ishwar, and neither is the intention of any of us to be racist on this manner.
I know.
I want to come back to the debate, sir. I want to come back to the debate. Sir, why don't you answer on this point and address it directly? Is there a somewhere, Tulsi, an attempt to make educational institutions in a certain way? The versions of history in our country, the right versus the left, has always been a contested one, more so in today's day and age. But if you can accuse the BJP or other parties of saffronizing the education, similar question stands for the left parties in the state of Kerala.
No, of course. I do not
The left parties have left the courts to do what they like.
Well, sir, the courts in this country are free to do what they like, whether it's Kerala or it's Delhi or it's Karnataka or any other part of the country.
The court does not
They are not free. You have seen what happened.
I don't think there is any metric to decide which court is more independent.
the courts of
please go ahead and
Delhi
make your
and
point.
various other states.
Tulsi, make your point. Please go ahead.
Of course, the left government is not immune from
Mr.
criticism when it comes
Kejriwal
to-
has
Mr.
been
Chopra,
telling
please
us
let her make the
about
argument.
both
Mr. Chopra, please
Punjab
let her make the
and
argument.
Delhi.
No, not this way. Tulsi, please go ahead.
Any democratic government, for that matter, will be answerable to its people. It is, of course, subject to political criticism, and something as important as an appointment in a public university, of course, it will have to answer. But I just want to make this point that we should not conflate these two issues, right?
Yeah.
There is one issue of appointment, and there are allegations made against one appointment, and that does not legitimize all the actions of the governor. And that is
Sure.
important to note that.
Sure.
Here we have a system wherein we have a fight between a nominated head, namely the governor, and an elected legitimate government. So we should, merely because one of the allegations of the governor get some judicial endorsement, if at all, from the High Court, that doesn't legitimize automatically all the actions
you're
of
right,
the
but
governor.
Tulsi, and legally I agree with you that it doesn't legitimize in any way. That's not an argument. But that being said, Rahul, the key question is also the fact that the governor's office is supposed to act as a check and a balance. And if in this one appointment it can be substantially raised, yes, legally you can't hold that as a barometer for all the cases concerned. But in public perception, the questions do find some merit and substance.
Absolutely, yes. And please remember, beyond a battle, governor has been, admiration, because before him, there was no election commission we would ever know, because TN Session was very vibrant, active and proactive in intervening in
Every
social
governor
issues.
is a rubber stamp, and this man is doing the job of the RSS.
Sir, you may feel because of your political affiliation, but the normal people of Kerala see him as a person
No,
who's standing
he
up
is
for
doing
ethics,
the job of the
uprightness and
RSS.
propriety. And he is not a rubber stamp of any party, and he is a person who has even sacrificed his post because of his principle.
He
in the Rajiv
is
Gandhi
the
government.
rubber
We all
stamp
know
of
his
the
antecedents.
BJP. Do
We all
not
know his-
try to hide the fact.
Just let me please finish. So let me please finish. Sri Arif Muhammad Khan resigned his post of minister because he believed in some principle in reformation of the Muslim, affecting Muslim women. So he's a man of principle in that matter, and he has been raising some issues. It is up to the governor. It's up
He
to the
is
Kerala
now a
government and
man
Chief
of
Minister
principle.
to be the statesman. It is up to the Kerala Chief Minister Sri Pinarayi Vijayan, who is a very strong
All
man
right.
and a strong Chief Minister.
Well, Rahul,
to be a
I want to
statesman
end the
and then
debate on the
friendship.
note that the High Court today has given an
just
order which is
30
about
seconds. Can you give me
following.
30 seconds? I want to talk.
Mr. Nair, 10 seconds to you. Please go ahead and make your point, then I have to close the show. All right, that's all the time that I have. Rahul Ishwar, Raju P. Nair, Suneet Chopra and Tulsi K. Raj. Well, the key question is about the appointment at educational institutions in this country, and the High Court clearly has batted for merit over any kind of political influence that we can see in our educational institutions. Clearly, the fight between the governor's office and the elected government in the state of Kerala, that's far from over. With that, it's a wrap. Poonam joins you on the other side.
Good evening, hello and welcome. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Poonam.